Welcome to Namaste React. This is episode 6. Let's explore the world. So today we are going to explore the world of React.js app, and not just the world of React.js app but also the world outside of our app. Let us just begin. So now let's just take up our project and open it up in VS Code. Okay, so now we have our code with us over here. And now let me just start our project. How do we start our project? Let's write npm start and we have our project running in. Okay, so now in this episode we are going to explore the world, right? So before starting to teach anything, I want to explain you a few concepts. Okay, so where is my notepad? Here is it, right? Here is my notepad and pen with me. Okay, so you also get your notepad and pen with you and keep on taking down notes along with what I am teaching you right now. So first of all, I am going to talk about something known as monolith and microservice architecture. Okay, so if you are a software engineer, you are working in IT industry, you must have also heard of what is monolith, what is microservice architecture, and you would have heard the world is moving toward microservice architecture. I will briefly tell you about all this, and we will also see how all this information is helpful in this today's session. Okay, so let me tell you first of all, monolith architecture. Okay, what is known as a monolith architecture? So traditionally, when the apps were developed traditionally, right, web apps were developed, they were all developed using a monolith architecture. What does it mean? So earlier we used to have a huge big project, right? We used to have a huge big project, and suppose if we are building an application in this huge big projects, we used to have small pieces, right? This project itself has code of APIs, right? So this project itself has code where there are APIs written, right? We have developed APIs inside this project. We also have UI code inside the same project. Okay, we have UI code inside the same project. We have authentication code inside the same project. We have database connectivity code inside this project, right? We can have notifications, right, sending SMS code inside this project, right? So let me give you an example. So I used to work in a lending cart. It was one of my initial companies when I started my career, right? So what is this? Not enough cloud storage. Ignore this. So when I was in lending cart, right, so there we had a single project that was written in Java. Okay, that was a Java project, and we used to do everything inside the same project. Okay, we had APIs written in the same project. We had JSP pages, right, for building the UI. That was known as Java Servlet pages. So no need to go dive deep into all this stuff, right? I'm just telling you for the sake of telling you, right? For the sake of information. But what I'm trying to tell you is that in that whole application, in that whole Java application, we had APIs, we had backend written, we have frontend written, we have authentication written, we have connection to DB written, we had notification written. All the code was there in the same service, right? And this whole project, even if we had to make a single change, suppose if I have to change the color of a button, right? My task is to change a color of a button. What we used to do was we have to build this whole project. We have to compile this whole project and we have to deploy this whole project. Big bulky project, right? So that was monolith architecture. So, there is a debate over microservices vs monolith. I don't want to get into that, but I'm just telling you that was monolith architecture, right? Now, in today's time, right, the world is kind of moving towards microservice architecture, right? All the big companies are preferring to make microservices. What is a microservice architecture? Let me explain you that also. Right? So if I have to explain you what is microservice architecture, so in microservice, so suppose if we have this microservice, right? Microservices. So in the microservice architecture, right? In the microservice architecture, we have different services for different jobs, right? So we have a service which is like a backend service, right? Which is a backend service. We have a UI service, right? We have a UI project, right? We have a authentication authentication service. We have a maybe like a service which connects to DB, which maintains a database, right? We have a service for our SMS sending. We have a service for maybe like, let's say, email notifications, right? So there are different services, right? And you know, these all microservices, right? That is why we known as, like, these are services and these are microservices, right? Small services, and all these service combined together forms a big app. You know, forms a big app. All these services combined together forms a big app, right? I was working in Uber, right? So Uber followed microservice architecture. All these small applications, right? We had a lot of microservices over there in Uber, right? And all these microservices talk to each other depending upon the use cases, right? We had a separate UI project, we have a separate backend project, we have a separate notification project, we have a separate database thing, and for each and every small thing we had a different project, right? And this is known as separation of concerns. Okay, note it down. This is known as separation of concerns and single responsibility principle, right? It follows a single responsibility principle where each and every service has its own job. Nobody is interfering with it. And you know what? I'll tell you, when I was in Lending Cart, we had a monolith architecture, we had a big project, and all the developers, the backend developers, front-end developers, everybody used to work in the same project. Everybody used to work on the same repository, on the same GitHub repository. Now, with microservice architecture, all of the teams work on their own independent service. All of these teams, right? A backend team is different, maintaining their backend project. They have their own deployment cycle and everything is separate, right? So this is what is microservice architecture. Now, one more question is, now you understood what is microservice architecture. Now, one more thing is, right? That how do these services interact with each other, right? So that's what I wanted to tell you, that okay, these services have to interact with each other to make the whole application work, right? The UI needs to talk to backend, isn't it? The UI will talk to backend, right? The UI service will talk to backend to fetch the data and show it on UI. The backend service needs to talk to DB, isn't it? The backend service needs to talk to the auth, right? So there are different type of connections between these services, right? The backend needs to talk to notification service. So what I'm trying to say is that all these services talk to each other, right? Why is this bugging again and again? Anyways, right? So all these services talk to each other, right? Now, I'll tell you one more important thing. Now you will ask me, Akshay, when we have all these services, how are these services deployed and how can we access these services? Okay, first of all, let me tell you that. So suppose if we have, you know, all these services are deployed, right? Okay, let me give you a good example. Okay, we had our own UI service, right? Over here in this microservice architecture, where does our project comes in, right? We are building this React project. Where it is. So, you know, you can assume that our React project that we are making is a UI microservice. Okay. The Namaste React project that we are making is a UI microservice. Okay. And this microservice is written in what? Is written in React. Okay. And you know, one more advantage of microservices, that you can have different tech stack for different things. Suppose in monolith you had one big project, a Java application, then you have to do everything in Java. But in this case, in this microservice architecture, you can have UI written in React, you can have backend written in Java, you can have your database written in Python, you can have SMS service written in Golang, right? You can write your microservice in any architecture you want to. That is why, you know, it's foolish, right? I have seen a lot of students, they ask us that, okay, what language is being used in Uber, or which language is being used in any specific company. Let me tell you a honest answer, right? There is like almost all the big companies are using multiple tech stack, multiple languages, multiple repositories, multiple services for different things. And after all, it all depends on the use case, right? What is the role of that service, right? And what tech stack is suitable to implement that, right? So that's how we decide the language. And we don't have to restrict for a language, right? Most of the times, many companies do make a standard that, okay, all the UI project will be based on React, or will be made in Angular, or will be made in Vue, but it is not necessary. In the microservice architecture, you can build it independently. One service can be in React, one service can be in Vue, and whatever tech stack you want to. But how these services are connected, right? How these services are connected. So just like our UI service, right, was deployed on what port? It was on port 1234. Similarly, all these services run on their own specific ports, right? They run on their own specific ports, right? So suppose on 1234, port number 1234, we can have our UI service, right? We can have our UI service, right? And on port 1000, suppose on 1000 we can have our backend service, right? And on port 3000 we can have our SMS service, right? So on different ports we can deploy different services. On different ports we can deploy different services. And at the end of the day, all these ports can be mapped to domain name. All these ports can be mapped to domain name. Suppose the backend is mapped to /API, right? Whatever your domain name is, suppose we have a domain name namastedev.com/API, and all these APIs are deployed onto this same URL. Okay. And similarly, we can have SMS on /SMS, right? To send an SMS, we just have to call this service /SMS. We can deploy the UI on just /, right? No URL ahead of that, right? On the /, right? As soon as it hits the main domain, it just redirects to this port 1234, right? So that's how. And how do these services interact? They make a call to different URLs, right? So suppose if UI wants to connect to backend, they will make a call to /API, or will call this different port. Got it? So that's how these services are connected, and that's how they interact with each other. Now, what we'll see is, we will now see how a React application, this UI application, React application, will make connection or explore the world, right? This whole episode is upon let's explore the world, right? So how do this React application talk to different microservices outside of this world, outside of it world, right? So how will a React application make a backend API call and fetch the data? This is what we are going to learn in today's episode. Let's just now go to the code and see how we can do this in code, right? You will be amazed and you will love this concept. So now here is our code, right? So this was our code. We had this body component, isn't it? So we had this body component, and over here we were rendering the list of restaurant. This list of restaurant was coming from REST list, isn't it? We saw that how we can create a state variable using useState, right? In the last episode, we saw how we can create a state variable using useState, and we have populated this with REST list. What is this REST list? Where it is coming from? This REST list is coming from mock data, right? And this mock data had a dummy data, right? And this dummy data was coming from Swiggy, right? From the Swiggy website, right? We had this Swiggy API. Let me do inspect. Let me set the location. The location is set to Koramangala. You know what? This is the API, right? This is the API where I took the data from, right? So this API data we copied into our code, but this is not a good way, right? We don't want to use this mock data. We don't want to use this dummy data. So now in this episode, we will see that how we can fetch dynamically data from the API and populate our page dynamically, right? This page will contain restaurant, right? This page had restaurant, right? So these restaurant will come on the fly from the API and not the hard-coded data, right? These restaurant will not contain hard-coded data. Okay, so let us now see how we can make the API call inside React. But before going that, I want to talk about two approaches, right? The two approaches how web apps or UI applications fetch the data from backend. Okay, so there are two approaches. Okay, listen to me very carefully. So what are the two approaches? There are two ways, right, that can be followed, and I will tell you what we will use, right? So the first way is, when our app load, when to make an API call. Okay, so let us see when we can make an API call. So suppose our app loads, right? As soon as our app loads, one thing what we can do is we can just make an API call to fetch the data, right? As soon as our page loads, right? As soon as our page loads, what page I am talking about? As soon as this page loads, right? We can make an API call, and when we get the data, then we can render it onto the UI. Got it? What we will do? So what we will do? First, as soon as our page loads, we can make an API call, wait for data to come, and then we render the UI. Suppose if this call takes 500 millisecond. Suppose if the API call takes 500 millisecond. So what will happen? The page will load. Our page will wait for 500 milliseconds, and then after 500 milliseconds, it will render the UI. So what will happen is, you must have seen, right? When you open the web page, so you suddenly don't see anything, and suddenly as soon as the API responds, it quickly shows a lot of stuff on the screen, right? So that is approach one. What is the approach second? The second approach is, as soon as the page loads, right? As soon as the page loads, what will happen is, we will just render our UI. Oh my god, this is bugging me so much. I'll buy a subscription now. As soon as the page loads, what we will do, we will render it, right? We will quickly render it. Oh my god, my handwriting. Let me just write it once again. We will just render it. Okay, so we will render the UI. So as soon as our page loads, we will render the UI. Now what we'll do, after we have quickly rendered, now we will make an API call. Okay, now we will make an API call, and as soon as we get the result back from API, we will now re-render our application with the new data. Got it? We will render our application with the data from the API once again. Got it? So now let me revise once again. Let me tell you the approaches once again. As soon as the page load, we made an API call, we wait for data to come. As soon as the data comes, we will render it. Got it? One thing is that. Another approach is, we will, as soon as the page loads, we will just quickly render whatever is there. Whatever we can render, we will just render it with whatever we have, right? We will just render the skeleton, right? And as soon as the skeleton is rendered, now we will make an API call, right? And as soon as the API responds, we will just render the data onto the web page. So there are two approaches, and let me tell you, my dear friends, in React, right? In React, we will always be using this second approach. And let me tell you why we will use second approach and why this approach is better. You must be thinking that we have just overcomplicated stuff, right? We are rendering it, then we are making API call again, we will again re-rendering it. It's like a mess, right? But let me tell you, my dear friends, this is a better approach. This is a better approach, and this gives you a better UX. Okay, this gives you a better UX. How? Because, in the initial page, right, in the initial approach, till 500 milliseconds, our page is kind of like frozen. We don't see anything onto the page, and after 500 milliseconds, we suddenly see everything, right? So that's a poor UX, right? That's a poor user experience. Instead, in the second approach, what we do, we load the page and then render whatever we can. Render the skeleton, and then later on, what happens quickly when you render the page? So our website, you can see something on the website, right? At least the skeleton, we can see the skeleton on the website, and then slowly the website loads, right? It's like, it's a better user experience, and the user do not see a lot of lag and all that random stuff, the jitteriness, right? When we load the page. So this experience is much more better, and in React, we always do that. And one more important thing. Now you would say that we are rendering twice. Does not matter. React, the most important part of React, why React is popular is because that its render cycles are very fast. React has one of the best render mechanism, rendering stuff, right? React renders your UI very fast. So we don't have to bother much about how many times we are rendering, right? We don't so we bother about how many times we are rendering, but 2 renders are okay, right? It will give a better user experience. So in React, we will always do like this. In React, we will follow the second approach. So now with this data into the mind, with this knowledge into the mind, I have explained you, given you a lot of theory. As Linus Torvalds says, talk is cheap, show me the code. Let's just go to the code and let's now code this all up. And you will be amazed and you will love this concept when you will see the code. Okay, so let's just begin the code. Welcome back, my friends. Now comes the most exciting part, which I am always excited about, that is the code. Now we will write the code for whatever we saw, right? We saw the second approach. Now we will try to code this approach, okay? Are you ready? Just pay attention with whatever I am teaching, because this is really very important. You will have to make a lot of API calls in your app when you will develop your React application. So don't get distracted and let's just begin to see the code, right? Now to write the code for the second approach, I want to introduce an important topic inside React, right? Which is known as use effect hook. Okay, so listen to me very carefully. This is how we write code, right? So we have a use effect hook, right? It's a normal React hook, right? Just like we had use state, right? Remember in the last episode, we had a hook use state. Okay, I want to ask one question, right? What is hook at the end of the day? What is hook in simple terms? What is a hook in React? What is a hook in React? So I told you the last time also, a hook is nothing. You know, we overcomplicate stuff so much. But let me tell you, hook is nothing but a normal JavaScript function. A normal JavaScript function which React gives to us. It has its own specific use case where we use these functions. Okay, so just like use state was used to create state variables, use effect has its own specific function, right? And let us just see what is the purpose of this use effect. Okay, so first of all, this use effect will again come from this React library and it will be imported as a named import, right? So this use effect comes from this React library. And how do I use my use effect now? So let me first tell you the syntax of use effect. So use effect is again a function, right? So we will call it like a function, and use effect will take two parameters, right? The first, not 2 parameters, 2 arguments. Okay. Oh, my bad. Parameters, we as arguments. Don't you know that? Go to Namaste React, Namaste JavaScript, sorry. You would learn all these small nitty-gritty things. What is parameters? What is argument? So there are 2 arguments which will pass into use effect. The first argument is arrow function, right? This arrow function is a callback function. The first argument is a callback function and the second argument is a dependency array, right? So listen to me very carefully. Let me repeat it once again. This use effect is just like a normal function. We'll call this function with a callback function over here. This is a callback function. Let me write some code, right? It's looking very messy, right? Let's do a console log in this callback function. Use effect called, right? So this is a callback function, right? Use effects function, and this is a dependency array. Now the question is, when will this use effect callback function be called? When will this use effects callback function be called? So the answer is that this callback function will be called after your component renders. After your component renders. Let me repeat it once again. When we have written this use effect like this inside our body component, right? So when the body component will load, right? It will render the component. And as soon as the render cycle is finished, it will call this callback function which we have passed into use effect. Got it? Let me repeat it once again. When the body function will render, it will render it, and as soon as the render cycle is finished, it will just quickly call this callback function. So now how the code will work? The body component will render, and then this callback function will be called, and then use effect called will be printed onto the console. Got it? So this is how this use effect works. Okay, so now is it that easy? Yes, it's that easy, right? So if you have to do something after rendering the component, you have to write it inside use effect. Got it? This is the purpose of use effect. Let me show it to you in action, right? Let me show it to you in an action. If I refresh my page, oh my god, I think I did not save this file. Let me save it, and it will automatically reload. See, use effect called, right? Our use effects callback function was called as soon as the body was loaded. But how do we see that? Okay, let me show it to you properly. It was quickly printed onto the console, right? We did not get to know whether it was called before render or after render. Let us just see it, right? So let's go back to our maybe sources, right? Let's go back to the source code in body.js. Let me just put a debugger right before this use effect is called, right? And let me refresh my page, and also before the component is rendered. Okay, so now you know what happened? As soon as I load my page, see, nothing is rendered right now. Nothing is rendered right now. Okay, not rendered. Now I will render this body component, and you will see that I will render this body component. See, the body component is rendered, right, with the dummy data. The body component has been rendered with the dummy data, and use effect. Let us now see whether use effect called is printed or not. In the console, see, there is no use effect called over here, isn't it? Now let me go back and let me play this, right? Now as soon as I go back, now this use effect was called, right? Now this use effect was called, and use effect called was printed. So basically whatever you pass, right, this inside this callback function will be called, this callback function will be called of use effect will be called after the component has been rendered. Got it? So this is how, let me ask you a trick question. Okay, suppose if I had a console log over here, right? A lot of people gets confused with this, but if you understand this, you will never be confused, right? So render called, okay, rendered, okay, component rendered, body rendered, okay, body rendered. What will be called first? What will be printed first? Body rendered or use effect called? I have just done this console log inside our body component. When will this be called? When will this be called? What will be printed first? Body rendered or use effect called? Think about it. And let me show it to you. The body rendered was printed first. First the body will be rendered, then the use effect will be called. This is a simple thing a lot of developers don't understand. That is why I am stressing this a lot, right? I am just telling you again and again because this is very, very, very important to understand React and to understand use effect and to understand a lot of more concepts of render cycles, right? As soon as we go ahead in later episodes, everything will make even more sense, right? All these, why we are loading this, how it is being rendered, right? All the reconciliation and everything that I told you, right? Everything will make a lot of sense. But first of all, how this code is executed as soon as this body component is rendered, right? So it renders line by line. It just executes all this code. As soon as it sees use effect, right, it will just keep this callback function. It will save this callback function to call it after render, right? And it moves ahead, right? Then it logs body is rendered. Then it renders this is, what is this? This is JSX, not HTML. So it will render this JSX, and then what will happen is once this is rendered properly, once the render is done, then it will call this callback function, right? And it just prints this use effect call. Okay, so this is how this use effect works. Now, why am I teaching you use effect? You would have already guessed it already, right? You would have already guessed it, right? So use effect will be helpful when we have to implement this second approach, right? As soon as the page loads, it just renders the component, the body component will be rendered, right? And then now we will make an API call after the render is done. So once we have rendered the page, right? Render the body component. Now we will fetch the data. Where we will fetch the data? We will fetch the data inside our use effect, isn't it? We will fetch the data inside our use effect. And let me get rid of this. We will fetch the data inside our use effect. So over here we will fetch the data. I have created a function. Let us now write this function logic to fetch the data. Okay, write the function logic to fetch the data. So how do we fetch the data in JavaScript? So React is no different. You know, fetching, the logic of fetching the data is exactly the same as we used to do in JavaScript, right? There is nothing different. How do we do it? For fetching the data, we will use, right? We will use a method, a function, a superpower, fetch, right? Do you know what is fetch? So fetch is a superpower that is given to us by JavaScript. No, it's not given to us by JavaScript. This is given to us by browsers. This is given to us by browsers. It's a superpower which a JS engine, right? JS engine have, right? Which a JS engine has, right? So this fetch will fetch data from the API, right? This fetch will fetch data from the API. I'm not writing anything random of React. This is just pure JavaScript what I'm writing right now. So this fetch will fetch data from the API. What API we want to call? We want to call Swiggy's API, right? From where do we get data? This Swiggy API. Can we use this API? Can I use this API? Can I use Swiggy's API into our app, into my local? Good question, right? Let me tell you, let us just try to see, right? Why should I tell you? Let's just try to use it, okay? So we have this API, right? You know, let us just copy this API, right? And try to use this. Try to fetch this API, okay? Let's try to fetch this API and see if it works or not, okay? So now, meanwhile, can you guess, will this work or not? Can you guess, will this work or not? Let us just see. Okay, anyways, right? What will this fetch return? The people who are already working, who have already worked in JavaScript would know, right? What will this fetch return? Fetch will return a promise, isn't it? So how do we resolve a promise? Either we can use the traditional way of using a .then and then resolving the promise using .then, right? Then and catch, handling the errors and all. Instead, what I will do is, I will follow a newer approach of using async await. Either you can do .then, .catch and all that stuff, or you can use async await. So I would advise you to use async await. That's a standard practice in the industry, and that's a much good syntax, much better syntax, right? So I'm writing async await, ASYNC, async await, right? So I'll make the function async and then I will await for data to come, right? So this will resolve the promise. And now once we have data, right, we have to convert this data to JSON, isn't it? Let's convert this readable stream to JSON. How do we convert this? I will again do a await. I will wait for the promise to resolve and I will convert this data to JSON. Okay, so now we have got this JSON. Now let me just log and check whether can we call this Swiggy API? Can we call this Swiggy API from our app, right? Can we call this Swiggy API? Let us just check it now. We will see whether this logs in the console or not, right? Oh my god, let me remove these debuggers. I have removed these debuggers and now let me just load our page. And oh my god, as soon as I load it, we got an error. Oh ho 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 ho. Can we not call Swiggy's API from our app? This is a huge blocker, isn't it? But not a big blocker. Let me tell you. First of all, let us see what error are we getting in the console. So it says, let me go back. It says that access to fetch at swiggy.com from localhost has been blocked by CORS policy. What is this CORS policy? So basically, calling swiggy.com from localhost has been blocked due to CORS policy. What is this CORS policy? Right? So basically, I'll explain you this thing. So, you know, who is blocking us? Who is blocking us? So the answer is our browsers block us to call API from one origin to different origin. Let me repeat it once again. Our browser, that's Chrome, is not allowing us to call Swiggy's API from localhost, from one origin to another origin. So if there is a origin mismatch, the browser blocks that API call. That is a CORS policy. And I'll tell you that, okay, if you haven't watched my CORS video, just go to YouTube, right? Go to YouTube and watch my CORS video, right? CORS over here, right? So this is my video, right? This is 3 years old video, but trust me, this is a very good video. Please go ahead and watch it. I'm doing a promotion of my video. Go to my YouTube channel, check out this CORS video, and you will learn a lot of things about CORS. In details, I have covered a lot of things. But, for now, how do I bypass this CORS? There is a way we can get rid of this CORS, right? Now, what we can do, we will just write CORS Chrome extension. Okay, so just write CORS Chrome extension and you will find a browser extension that will allow you to bypass this CORS. Okay, so now I already have this extension with me. Here is this extension. I just have to activate it. I can turn on and off like this, right? So, and people who are not on Chrome, on different browsers, you can also find it. You can also find an extension for your browser. Okay, Firefox has its own browser extension, right? So just use whatever extension you wish to, right? There will definitely be an extension for CORS. Okay, so this CORS extension will bypass our CORS error. Now let me reload our page. As soon as I reload our page, let me go to the network request and we have failed, right? These requests were failed. Let me just remove this. Let me refresh our page. And do you see? This API call is successful. Amazing, isn't it? Let us go to the console. So if I see the console, we have this JSON data. We have this JSON data with us, which is coming from directly swiggy.com API. Isn't this amazing? Isn't it amazing? Amazing, right? From our local host, we are calling Swiggy's API. Swiggy's API. When I was building this course, I was planning to make dummy APIs and let's use dummy APIs and then I will have dummy data inside it. It will come and you will use that dummy API. No. But then I realized that I want to give you industry standard knowledge, industry standard practices. So I want you all to use Swiggy's API. Let me give you a disclaimer that today, Swiggy has this API, swiggy.com/the/API/restaurant, right? Swiggy has this API. So today it is working. Tomorrow Swiggy might change its API, right? Tomorrow maybe Swiggy change the name of this service or maybe change the API URL. But this knowledge which I am giving you will always remain, right? So, don't panic if you don't have the same API over here. But let me tell you, okay? So suppose, this course will exist for years, right? After 2 years, 3 years, if you will see this video once again, what will happen is Swiggy might have changed this API, right? So what you can do is go back, go to the network call and see what API they are using and then try to copy this latest API. Okay, so this is what the disclaimer I am giving. The course, the React, this knowledge which I am giving you won't become irrelevant even if the API changes. Okay, so what I am telling you, and I am using this API because Swiggy is not giving me money. Let me give you a disclaimer. This video is not sponsored by Swiggy, right? I am just using their Swiggy's API because I want to tell you, I want to show you that how companies, when you'll go to companies, right, you will have to work with such APIs, isn't it? You will have to work with such huge data. So that is why I did not want to make dummy API. I wanted to directly show you live APIs, right? And let me tell you, my dear friends, we have just made the API call right now live. And we have got the JSON data from this API, from the Swiggy, right? So this API over here, right? can be different when you are watching the video. Okay, so always go to Swiggy and copy the latest API. Don't copy it from my code, okay, from here. So always try to fetch Swiggy's API, latest API, right? And not just Swiggy. Suppose if you are not using Swiggy, you are using some other application, go to their network console, find out what API they are using, just use it, fetch it. Okay, got it? So this is how we have got the data. Now we want this new data that we have received over here, this JSON, to populate our page, right? We have talked to external world. Amazing thing, right? This is the core part of this episode. I made an API call to external world, get the data inside our app. Now we are back inside our UI application. Where is this diagram, right? We have made the backend call. We have got the data. Now we are back again in our world, right? The React world. Now, when we have got this data, now we want to render our page with this new data. How do I render our page with new data? I don't want this hard-coded KFC, Meghna Food, Kannur and all that stuff, right? I want my new data inside this app. I want my new data inside my app. So now, first of all, let us see how are we rendering these cards, right? How are we rendering these cards? We are rendering these cards over here, right? Do you remember we did a map? We did a list of restaurant.map, and this list of restaurant contains rest list. This rest list was mock data, right? So now what I have to do is, we are on this third step. Okay. Did you understand? We are on which step? Here, right? We have loaded the page. The page will be rendered. We made the API call now, right? The page will be rendered. We made the API call here, fetch data. Now, after we have received this data, now we want to render. We want to render our component once again with this loaded data. How do we do that? This page is rendered using list of restaurant. So what will happen is, once we have got the data, I will update my list of restaurant with new data, isn't it? So I will update my list of restaurant with new data, and what will happen is, React will re-render the component and our new data will be populated onto the page. Got it? Let me explain you once again. As soon as we have got this data, I will put that data into my list of restaurant. And as soon as my list of restaurant updates, React will re-render this component and it will update the UI with the new data that the list of restaurant has, right? So how do I update my list of restaurant? We have this JSON, right? So I will put my list of restaurant inside my list of restaurant. How do I put it? So what we will do, we will use set list of restaurant, right? This is a state variable, not a local variable of JavaScript or something, right? This is a special state variable in React, right? So what we will do set list of restaurant, and in this list of restaurant, I will update the new data that has come up, this new JSON. Should I put all the JSON like this? No. We want something like rest list, right? So basically we want the list of restaurant. This data has a lot of random stuff, right? So we want to put this data, and we want to put this cards, and we want to go to see all restaurant. We want to go to data. We want to go to data once again. Oh my God, such complicated JSON they have sent in. But you know what? This is the fun of working with live APIs. You know, in real world, this is how messed up things are. Let me tell you, this is how messed up things are. The API that you will get will be having a lot of data, and we have to use a specific portion of that data, right? Right now, we just want these cards, right? This is the cards information. These are the restaurant. How many restaurants are there? 15 restaurants are there, right? This length is 15, isn't it? So we want these cards to be there inside our list of restaurant. That is why we chose to use live API. Otherwise, I could have built a dummy API, right? So I don't want to use dummy APIs. Okay, so let us just do. So basically we have to do JSON. Now we have JSON, is the whole JSON, right? But we want to go to json.data.cards of 2 .data.data.cards. Oh my God, this is too much to remember. Let me just write it down. JSON dot data dot cards of 2, right? I think so. JSON dot data dot cards of 2 dot data dot cards. Oh my god. Dot data dot cards. So this is what I want inside my set list of restaurant. Let me just save it and let us refresh the page and let us see if it works or not. So if I refresh my page, do you see this? Do you see something? Let me refresh the page and show it to you once again. Right now we have these biryani pot and Burger King over here. Let me refresh the page. See, we have this old and then suddenly it changes. Do you see this? Let me explain you. Let me show it to you once again. If I refresh the page, see, this is old data and then it suddenly changes to new data. So that was the mock data that was rendered before, and now this is the new data. This is the live data. If we go to the Swiggy's website, see this. Fiero Pizzeria, Meghna Foods, Third Wave Coffee. Fiero Pizzeria, Meghna Foods would be here, right? Somewhere. Meghna Foods, Third Wave Coffee. They have, I think, sorted somewhere. But this is the new live data that is coming up. This biryani pot is coming up over here. This is the new data which is coming up in the API. This is the live data, my dear friends, from the API. This is not the mock data. Mock data is gone, right? It's not gone. Let us just wipe it off, right? This is the mock data. So right now, why it is coming? That mock data is coming because initially we have this REST list. Ideally, initially what should happen? Initially, this REST list should be, this list of restaurants should be empty, isn't it? Let me save the page. See, if we refresh the page, we have nothing on our page. Now we make an API call and we fetch the data. This is how we populate new data. And now we have got rid of this REST list. I no longer need this REST list. I don't want my mock data. I can delete this too. Okay. I can delete this file. I don't want any mock data, right? Let me delete this file also. Okay. So now our whole app has got rid of all that mock data and it is loading live data. It is making API call to the external world, getting the data, and our app is rendering the data from the live APIs. Isn't it amazing, right? Amazing, cool stuff. Cool. Now, let me tell you one more important thing. Let us go back to the code and see, is this a good way? Right? I'm not talking about React right now. Just normal JavaScript code, right? Is this a good way to write code? No, this is not a good way to write code, right? We have this JSON.data.cards.data.data.cards. What is this? Not a good way. So here we can use something known as optional chaining. Okay, optional chaining in JavaScript. So we can do something like this, right? So read it. This is not Namaste JavaScript. This is Namaste React. So I'm not focusing a lot upon these JavaScript concepts, but try to see why we are doing this. Read more about optional chaining if you don't know, but this is a good way of handling this data, right? This is a good way of handling this data. If you don't know why, I don't want to go dive deep into this concept. Please read it again, right? Please read it on the internet. There is a lot of information available. But this is how you write code. Okay, so this is how you fetch data and we rendered this data. Now we have fetched the data and we have also seen that how we can fetch the data. But as soon as I load the page, see, you still see a blank page, right? Though the component is rendered, right? Do you know what do you mean by render the page? You would see that, okay, it is looking empty. But if you will clearly observe that something was rendered onto the page, right? Something was rendered onto the page. Let me show it to you. See, this is body, right? If I refresh my page, see, body is here. The body is empty, but the body is rendered. But because it was empty, that is why we don't see anything. But still, the body was rendered and the page was rendered very fast, right? The page was rendered very fast, right? So now how we can improve the experience even more, right? Meanwhile, the API is taking some time to load. How we can improve the experience? So I'll show you one important thing, right? So what we can do is either we can do one important thing. So as soon as we load the page, I can show a spinning loader, right? I can show a spinning loader. How will you show a spinning loader? How will you show a spinning loader? Let me just tell you how, right? So what we will do is, unless we have this data, what we will do, I want to show a spinning loader over here, right? So what I will do, I will write a condition that if my list of restaurant is empty, suppose if we don't have any data, what should I do? Instead of rendering this all, I will render what? A loading screen, isn't it? So let me write this logic. Where will you write this logic? Let me just get this down. Okay, where will I write this logic? If my list of restaurant dot length, right, dot length is equal to 0, right? That means we don't have any item in the list of restaurant. So what should I return? I will just return, right? I will just return loading icon, right? So instead of loading, let me just have a h1 and let's show. You can show a spinner over here, right? You can put a fancy image of that loading screen and all that stuff, right? I'm just writing loading right now. Okay. So if my list of restaurant.length is equal to 0, it will just return loading and it won't go over here. So React will not return this. React will not return this piece of JSX. Instead, it will just directly put loading over there. Let us go back. Let me refresh the page and see. See, you see loading over here? I wrote a wrong spelling, LOADING, right? So if you go back, refresh the page, do you see loading? So you can show a spinner over here. But does showing a spinner a good way? Is showing a spinner is a good way? No, it is not. I want to teach you the latest standard practices that are followed in the industry. So today, in the industry, in the UI world, you know what happens? There is a concept known as Shimmer UI. Okay, there is a concept which is known as Shimmer UI. What is a Shimmer UI? Shimmer UI resembles the page's actual UI so that the user understands how quickly the web app loads. So it is kind of like we load fake page until we get actual data from the API. So we load a fake page until we get the data from the API. It sounds complex, but it is not, right? Instead of showing this loading, we can show a skeleton. We can show a fake page, right? We can show fake cards over here till the data is loaded. You don't understand what am I talking about? I'll show it to you. Okay. So now instead of showing a loading screen, see what Swiggy shows you. If I refresh the page, see this. What is this? Do you see these cards? Do you see these fake cards? So do you see these fake cards? Right? Do you see these fake cards? Let me show it to you. Meanwhile, the API is returning results. Swiggy shows you fake cards on this page. This is a much better user experience. You know, in the latest world, in the today's world, right? What happens is whenever you are developing an UI, right? So see, this is such a broken experience, you know. We see loading and then suddenly things appear on the page and it is very painful for our eyes, right? Suddenly something pops up to your screen. It's not a good user experience. A good user experience is that the user, right? The end user can anticipate, okay, there are cards. There will be cards which will be loading over here, right? See this. There will be cards which is being loaded over here. And all the new web apps are following this Shimmer UI. So I want to teach you what is Shimmer UI. I want to teach you the latest standard practices which are being followed inside the industry. Everybody is using Shimmer UI. Let's go to, have you seen, even YouTube follows Shimmer UI. See, do you see that? Let me refresh the page. See this, see this. Do you see a Shimmer UI? This is Shimmer UI, what you see over here. These blank cards, these dummy cards, these random gray circles, right? This is Shimmer UI. right? So always when you are building your UI application and your API is taking some time, load a Shimmer UI quickly, right? How? In this whole cycle, as soon as your app loads, load it, render it with Shimmer UI. Afterwards, make an API call and then render it with actual data whenever you have that data. Got it? Now, let me show it to you. How do we build our own Shimmer UI? So instead of this loading, I want my Shimmer UI. Right? So how do I build this? I can just have a Shimmer UI over here, right? I can just write JSX to make fake cards. Do you want me to code that? Let me code that, okay? It won't take much time, okay? How? Let me create a Shimmer component, okay? Let me create a Shimmer component and let's make a component with those small fake cards, okay? Okay, let's build it. So for a new component, let us create a new file. Let's call it shimmer.js, okay? Shimmer.js, how do you create a component? Very easy, right? A functional component. At the end of the day, what is a component? It's a function, isn't it? So I'll just have a arrow function over here, Shimmer UI. And now this is a function that returns some piece of JSX. What is the JSX it will return? Okay, so it will return, let me create a div, right? And let me create a div, let me give it a class name, Shimmer container or something like that, right? Shimmer container. And then we can have different cards over here, right? Fake cards. So maybe let's give it a class name, Shimmer card, right? And similarly, I can have a lot of cards over here, right? A lot of cards. So it won't show anything. Cards, right? Let me see. First of all, load it, right? After then, we will write some CSS for it. So first of all, let me see if it is loading or not. And now when we have created this component, I just have to export this constant Shimmer, right? So I will just export this constant Shimmer function, constant Shimmer. No, export default, not constant, right? Export default. So now when we have our component ready, now let me just export it, right? Export default Shimmer, right? So we have exported it by default. Now I will just import it inside my body, right? Inside, not my body, inside our app's body, right? Import Shimmer from Shimmer, right? /Shimmer. And now instead of this loading screen, I will just put my Shimmer component. How will I put my Shimmer component? This is how I have put my Shimmer component. Let me now see if we see Shimmer. Yes, see, we have these cards, right? So instead of these cards, we have to actually make fake cards, right? So I can do that quickly by CSS, right? Let me just use this CSS. Oh, I have written this class name as cards. No, it should be card, isn't it? Shimmer container and Shimmer card. Let me just quickly write some CSS for it. CSS. So in my Shimmer card, right? Shimmer card. What will I make this card? I'll give a height and width to that card. Let me give a width as 200px and let me give a height as double of it, right? 400px, right? And let me give it maybe a background color, right? Background color of gray, isn't it? Let me give it a background color of gray. And let me now see it, right? Let me give it padding, right? Or maybe margin of maybe 10px, 20px. Okay, let me give it 20px. So let us just see. Let me refresh the page. Oh, it shows card. Oh, these cards are not in proper order. Oh, we have to give some CSS to this Shimmer container also, right? Flex Shimmer container, right? And I will just do display flex over here. Now let me refresh my page. Yes, do you see these cards? Instead of these cards, I am showing you the Shimmer UI, isn't it? Right? Do you see this Shimmer UI? Right? But those cards are looking ugly. I know that. I have to change the color. Let me change it to F0. I think that is a good color. F0. So I'm just making it very, yes, this is much better. And let me just get rid of these cards, right? So this is much better. Now what we can do, this is kind of like creating fake cards, right? I can just make 15 of these cards, right? I can just make 15 and whatever number we want. Oh my god. Oh my god. Do you see this? You have to put in CSS, right? Flex and then flex wrap, right? Wrap, flex wrap. Okay, flex wrap wrap. Now let me go back. See this? Good now. So we have these Shimmer UI with us. Isn't it amazing? So this is how you build Shimmer UI, right? You can make it more fancy. You can make this like as fancy as YouTube and all that stuff, right? In YouTube, do you see that? You get that channel name and icon and all that stuff, right? You can make it as fancy as you want to, right? As fancy as Swiggy, right? See, Swiggy has a fancy Shimmer UI, isn't it? So you can make it, but the idea of Shimmer UI is that you want to show something to the user very quickly. As soon as the page loads, do you see this? As soon as the page loads, quickly we see something, and the user is now anticipating that, okay, you know, when the user sees the Shimmer UI, it makes a psychological effect, right? User don't see that, oh, this website is slow, it is like not loading. No. So what we are doing is we have made a fake impression that, okay, here cards will be coming, right? So it is psychologically better. It's not like something suddenly pops up to your screen. It is like when you load a page, you see those blank cards and then those cards get filled. Right? It gives you that impression. So this is a standard practice, and if you are building a UI project, then definitely you should use Shimmer UI to make a better user experience. That is why I wanted to teach you this. Let us now take a break, go back to your app, and now practice all of that what I have coded. Code it in your laptop, code it in your application, and see if you can write code for this, right? It will be really good. Right? So write code for it, and after this break, we will come back and we will continue with this session, continue with this episode, and continue coding and learn a lot of new things. So I'll see you right back. Let's take a break. Welcome back to this episode. We just saw that how we can make an external API call from our local host, and we just made an API call to swiggy.com and fetch the restaurant information from the swiggy.com live API. Wasn't it wonderful, right? And what did we use for that? We used a super important hook which React gives to us, which was useEffect, right? So this is how we make an external call. This is how we explore the world outside of our React application from our React application. Okay, and one more thing which was super helpful for us was this Chrome extension, CORS, right? And CORS plugin, which bypassed the CORS issue, isn't it? So that's how we make an API call. Now let us just move ahead. I wanted to tell you one more thing, right? Remember how did we load this Shimmer effect? The Shimmer effect, right? When we load the page, it shows the effect over here, shows the fake cards instead of the actual restaurant cards. Right? So we wrote a condition for this, right? So this condition, right? The list of restaurant dot length is equal to 0. If the list of restaurant is 0, right? That means the API hasn't responded us yet, right? So what happens is we have this Shimmer effect, right? We show this Shimmer effect. So basically rendering the component like this, right? Having a condition rendering. So this is known as conditional rendering. Okay, this concept is known as conditional rendering. Okay, so you would have understood it already. Why I'm telling you all this is because sometimes the interviewer will ask you what is conditional rendering, and you would say that, oh my god, I don't know what is conditional rendering. But this is what conditional rendering is. It is just a fancy name for this concept, right? Rendering on the basis of condition is known as conditional rendering. Hope you would have understood it, right? So I just wanted to tell you that you don't miss this jargon, right? This is just a jargon, nothing fancy, right? So conditional rendering. If you have a condition and then render according to condition, that is known as conditional rendering. Got it? So one more thing I wanted to tell you is that over here, if you see, right, if this list of restaurant length is equal to 0, then return Shimmer. Otherwise, return this, right? So we can club all this code together. How can we club all this code together? Instead of having this if here and then return here, what we can do is we can directly write a single return, and I can use a ternary operator over here, right? This is not a React concept, it's just normal JavaScript, right? How do you use a ternary operator? What we will do is we will just do list of restaurant dot length is equal to 0. So if my list of restaurant dot length is equal to 0, then, right, return my shimmer, right? Return my shimmer effect. Otherwise, right, this colon, otherwise load this. Got it? So this is how we load shimmer in condition, right? So this is also known as conditional rendering, and we have used a ternary operator to handle these conditions. So if I save this up, so hope this code is clear to you, right? So if you see, right, if you see such type of code, don't panic. Sometimes we see this type of code and we realize that, oh my god, what is this return and then all this, right? All this. But this is just a ternary operator, and it is rendering basis on the condition. This is conditional rendering. If this condition fulfills, then shimmer will be rendered. If this condition does not fulfill, then this will be rendered. And if I go back to the page and see, it works perfectly fine, absolutely like how it was working before. So this was conditional rendering. Now, one more thing I wanted to tell you, another concept. A lot of people, face issues. I have taught React a lot of times to a lot of developers already. I have always seen issues that at this point of time, the developers are confused about use state, right? And they have few questions in mind. Like, when we have normal variables, right? When we can use a constant list of restaurant, right? Then why do we create state variables? So basically, the most important question is, why do we even need state variables? Lot of React developers don't understand. They just feel that, okay, if I have to create a local variable inside my component, I will have to use state. They don't know that why we use that. And can we even use a local variable in place of this list of restaurant? Will that work? And okay, a lot of people will say that, okay, it won't work, right? Normal JavaScript variables won't work. We will have to create a state variable. But why will it not work? And what is that superpower that is there with this list of restaurant, this state variable, this local variable inside React that the normal JavaScript variable does not have? What is that superpower? So this is a confusion for a lot of developers. If you already know this concept, don't worry. It will be a revision for you. But let me explain it. Let me explain this once again so that everything just sticks into your head. I want Namaste React students to be best, right? They should know everything internal, how React is working and why we do things and why we do not. See, I don't want to teach, a lot of teachers teach you like how this works, right? I just don't want to say that how use state work. No. Why do we even have use state? Right? And when do we use it? I want to answer everything. How is easy. Why, when is very important, right? So I want to teach you everything. So I'll dive deep into use state a little more. Okay. Now, for that, we will build a feature inside our app. Okay. We have already fetched the data from the live server. Now I want to build a small feature. Okay. And with that, I will demonstrate a little more concept of use state, right? So the feature is inside our header. So just like we have this home, about us, contact us, cart, right? Similarly, haven't you seen a login logout button? Right? There is a login logout button on the top of the header, right? Where we click on login and then we click on logout. So as soon as we log in, that login button changes to logout, isn't it? And then when you log out, it changes back to login, isn't it? So we will kind of try to build that button, right? We are not doing like actual authentication and all that stuff, right? But I want to show you that in the UI, how we can do that thing, right? Changing that login button to logout and logout button to login. Okay. So let's just build that quickly, right? It's a very small feature, but that will give you a in-depth understanding of use effect and how state works, right? inside React. So let's go back. So this was our body, and let's go to header now. So this is our header.js. Over here, we have this header, we have this home, about us, contact us, cart. Similarly, after the cart, I want a button, right? I want a button. I am not putting in very fancy CSS over here, but this button, right? Login button. Oh my god, this looks very ugly. I'll have to put some CSS. Anyways, so button class name is equals to login, right? Let me give it a login button. Okay, so this is a login button. Let me give it some CSS to make it look a slightly better. Login, right? Login button. And this login button will have, let me give it a padding of maybe 20px and 0 20px, right? On top and bottom, I want 0. On sides, I want 20px on the x-axis. Cool. So we have this login button, right? And let me also do a cursor pointer, right? It looks better. It looks better. It looks clickable, right? So now we have this login button. So as soon as I click on this login button, I want this login button to be changed to logout button. How do I do that? How do I do that? Right? So over here, I want this to be dynamic. I want this button code to be dynamic inside this JSX, right? This is JSX button. I want this login keyword to be dynamic, right? It should change to logout. How will I do that in React? Right? It should change to logout. If I do logout, so it became logout, right? If I click on that login button. Now, to do this, right, what we can do is we can create a local variable, right? We can create a local variable and we can say button name, right? Button name is equals to login. So initially, right, this is a normal string, and you already know if we have a string and I want to display this string inside the JSX, how would I use it? How would I use this variable inside my JSX? How will I use that? Right? You already know that we will put up these curly braces and we will just write btn name, right? BTM name over here. So now this BTM name is login right now, isn't it? And now, as we have seen login, now we somehow want to, right? We somehow want to change it to logout, isn't it? So basically, it's a simple logic, right? It looks simple. What we will do on click of this button, okay? I will write a click handler or click on this button. I will change my BTN name to logout and it should work, isn't it? So basically what I am trying to say is, if I write a on click over here, understand this very properly, right? What I am trying to develop. If I click on this button, it should change its name to logout. And if I click on it once again, it changes back to login, right? This is what I want to build. So what I am doing is, in this button, right now, the button name is login. Initially, by default, it is login, right? But as soon as I click on it, we have a click handler. We have this callback function. As soon as we click on this function, I want to change my button name. So what should I do? I should do something known as button name is equals to logout, isn't it? Button names is equals to logout, isn't it? Now, this is a constant variable, right? Let me make it let so that it won't bug, right? JavaScript does not let you modify constant variables, isn't it? So this is a let variable. Now I have changed this. Do you think this will work? This is a normal JavaScript variable, right? Button name. We have seen that this was showing login on our screen, right? If we see, this is login. But if I click on it, will this change to logout? Because will this BTN name will be updated? Will this show logout over here? Let me click on it. If I click on it, nothing happens. See this, I am clicking on it. I am clicking on it repeatedly. Nothing is happening. It is not changing anything. It's not doing anything. Why? Why? Now, you must be saying that, oh, this BTM name is not, maybe this callback function is not getting called. Or maybe this BTM name is not getting updated. Is it so? Let us just console log and see. Okay. Let us just console log and see whether this BTM name was updated or not, whether this function was even called or not, right? When we click on that function, whether we have put in the click handler right or not, right? So if we go back, Let me refresh the page. Now, if I click on this login button, see this. It printed logout. It printed logout. That means this variable btn name got updated to logout, but this UI did not update. There is a minute difference. Let me repeat everything once again. This is a very important concept. Listen to me with all your ears, right? We had this BTM name. It's a normal JavaScript variable, and we can use it like this inside our JSX, right? This login will come over here and login will be here in the button. But as soon as I click on this button, I want my BTN name to be updated. So this BTM name got updated already, right? We saw console log, right? This got updated to logout. But our UI did not render. But our component, this header component, did not had a refresh, right? There would be some way that we can refresh our header component so that it can take a latest, right? It can take the latest value of this BTN name, isn't it? There should be some refresh kind of thing. So this is why JavaScript variables does not work in such cases. If you want to make your component dynamic, if you want something should change in your component, we use local state variables. Here is where use state variables comes into picture. Got it? This is why we use state variables. Now, when we create, suppose if we had created this BTM name, a special React variable, that local state variable, right? Let us create, right? How do we use useState? Where does useState come from? The first question is, where does useState come from? It comes as a named import from useState from React, isn't it? Now, we have this useState. How do I create a useState variable? I write this is constant, and we have a button btn name React. Okay, let me give it a name, btm name, right? It will conflict if I just keep it like this, but let me give it as btm name React, right? And this btm name React comes from useState, right? We call this useState, and we will pass in a default value over here, isn't it? I showed you the syntax in the last session, right? So we have this btn name React. Now this behaves like a normal JavaScript variable. This behaves like a normal JavaScript variable, just like this variable. But it is a special React variable. It's a special local variable. Why it is special? I'll tell you in a while, right? So instead of btn name, suppose if I was using btm name React, right? Over here, if I use btm name React, and let me save my page and go back. So now this login is coming from btn name React, right? Let me just get rid of this btn name, right? Let me just get rid of this btn name. This is coming from btm name React. Now, click on that button, I want to update this new state variable, right? How will I update this new state variable? Can I write something like this? No. In the last class, I told you, right? We can't directly modify this btn name React, but we will have to use the second parameter which we get from useState, which is, useState gives us this btn name React variable, right? useState is giving us this variable, right? And it also gives you a function which will update this variable, right? As the second argument. That is why we have this set btn name React. So this name is, we just follow a nomenclature of putting set like in front of these variable names, but you can write whatever you wish to. You can write XYZ over here also. But whatever you will write, this will become a function. And if you have to update this variable, you can't directly do it. You will have to do it using a set btm name React. Okay, so this set btm name React will come over here, and we will call this function with the updated value. We will call this function with updated value. Now what will happen? This set btm name React, and let me also print this, right? This not set btm name. I want to print btn name React, right? So when we do this set btn name React, this btn name React will be updated with this new value logout. This looks so complicated. Now you would say, Akshay, this is so complicated. Is React simplifying our developer experience, or it is even making more complicated? Let me tell you, my dear friends, why we are doing all this, why React had to do all that. Let me tell you the thought process behind this. See, when you had a local variable, right? When we had just a normal let btn variable, btn name variable. So what we did was, there is no way for React to track whether this btn name got updated or not. Isn't it? If I change that btn name from onClick, React will not know anything. React will not know anything. But because this is a special state variable, React is now, whenever you will update this, right? Whenever you will update this, how will you update this? You will update this using set btn name React, isn't it? Whenever you will do set btn name React, React will, let me get rid of this console log. React will trigger the render process once again. So basically, what will React do? Whenever your state variable changes, listen to me very carefully, one important statement. Whenever this state variable will change, this state variable will be changed using this set btn name React, React will re-render this header component. React will kind of refresh this header component and all the updated values will be there. Got it? So now when you do a onClick, this will call a set btn name React. This btn name React will become logout, and it will just refresh this header component. Okay, let me show all of this to you and you will love it, right? So if I refresh my page and if I click on this login, just see, when I click on this login, see, it changed to logout. How did it change to logout? Because as soon as I clicked on this button, React updated this btn name React variable and also refreshed the header component. It triggered the reconciliation cycle. Remember I told about calculating the diff between virtual DOM and the old state of virtual DOM and the new state of virtual DOM, and then updating the UI. Everything is happening right now as soon as you click on this button. Isn't it amazing? And how fast it is happening, right? If I refresh the page, if I click on it, see, it takes a millisecond and it just refreshes the page. Just see in this elements, right? If we go to the elements and over here in this header, right, we have this logo container. No, we have these nav items. In these nav items, we have this button over here, right? See this. Now, if I refresh my page and you see this login over here, right? Now just see over here in this, right? In this over here in this HTML. When I click on this login, see this. It automatically quickly got refreshed. Right? So this is the superpower of React. So React is refreshing our header component. Now you would say, Akshay, the React is not refreshing our whole header, but it is just refreshing this button. Isn't it? Is it true or false? Is React refreshing this whole header? Is React refreshing this whole header? Or it is just refreshing this button? See, if I click on this, only the button changes. What is happening? Is it rendering the whole header again, or is it just modifying that button? Tell me. Important question, right? Go ask your friends, right, who have learned React. Very less people will know all this. Very less people. And this is such core important thing. If you understand this, you will understand the basic fundamentals of React, and nobody can defeat you in your interview or ever you want to talk about React anywhere with anyone, right? So let me show it to you that it will re-render the whole header component. How can I prove this? I'll tell you, right? Let me just do a console.log, right? Over here, and let me just do a render, right? Body header rendered, right? If whole header will be rendered, this will be logged, right? If this whole header will be rendered, this will be logged, right? So let me just go back. Let me go to the console. See, first time on the initial render, this is header rendered. Now let me click on this login button. As soon as I click on this login button, see this. Header is rendered once again. So what quickly happens is, what will React do is, see, this header was called again. That means whole function, whole React component, whole header component was refreshed quickly and was called quickly once again. Right? So what happened was, as soon as I clicked on this button, as soon as this on click was called, this callback function was called, and this set btn name React was called. So React was keeping a track of this btn name variable, right? And this btn name variable, React will update this variable btn name React, and then it will call this header component. It will render this header component once again. What do you mean by rendering a component? Rendering a component means it will just call this header function or call this header component once again. It will trigger it once again. But now this time we have updated values inside it. But now this time this use state will give updated value to this btn name. Use state will give updated value to this btn name. Thousands of developers gets confused that, Akshay, if this is a constant variable, how it is getting updated? How can a constant variable gets updated with the new value? Right? Isn't it isn't it defeating the JavaScript principles? If this btn name variable is a constant variable, how can we modify this constant variable? Have you ever given a thought? I bet 99.99% of React developers go out in the industry and ask your friends, ask people online, why and how can a constant variable be modified? How? Why is this set btn name React? How is it able to change this btn name React's value to logout? How? People don't understand what is happening. Whenever you update this value, basically React is updating this btn name React and it is calling this header once again. It is basically calling this header function once again. It is rendering, calling this function is equivalent to rendering this component once again. But this time when you invoke this function, this btn name is a new variable. This btn name variable is a new variable than it was before. This is the beauty of React. React is keeping a track of everything. Everything, my dear friends. That on the initial time, the state variable was login, right? But as soon as I do set btn name React, it will call this header function once again. It will create a new instance. This btn name React is different than that older btn name React which was being printed. And now when this new btn name React is created, it is not created with the default value, but it is created with the updated value from set btn name React. All this is happening behind the scenes. People enjoy this, right? When you write code, people just write 2 lines and everything automatically works, right? Doesn't it work automatically? You click on this button and suddenly the name of everything changes to logout. Just 2 lines of code. But behind the scenes, my dear friends, there is so much happening. What is happening behind the scenes? You know what is happening behind the scenes? As soon as you call this set btn name React, right? It will update the btn name React value reference, right? And then it will render this header component once again. It will find the diff between the older version and the newer version. And it will see that in that diff, only this button is getting updated. There is no change over here. There is no change in this li, there is no change in this ul, there is no change in this image on the logo or anything. Nothing will change. Nothing will change, but only this button will be changed. This is happening with this diff algorithm. This is the reconciliation process which everybody is talking about in React and which nobody understands but everybody talks about. This is why React is fast. Because when you click on this login button, if you see clearly, right, this is the logo, right? When I click on this button, if the header is getting refreshed, only this button gets refreshed. the logo will not load once again. See this. If I click on this, see the logo is intact because only the button changes. Only the button value changes over here. And it changes very fast. It is all dynamic. That is why we need state variables. This is why we need state variables. Lots of developers don't understand this small thing. Very important. Very, very important. Now, let me make this as a toggle functionality. If I click on logout, it should again change back to login. Login should change to logout. Logout should change to login, isn't it? Let's make this. This is btn name React, right? So this was login. If I click on logout, right? So if I click on that button, it changes to logout. But let me write a condition that if my button name is already login, right? If my button name is already equal to login, then only change to logout, right? But otherwise, change this to, whenever I click, otherwise change this to login once again, right? Login once again. Okay, so now if I go back, refresh my page, I click on login, it changed to logout. If I click on logout, see this. Do you see this? Only 2-3 lines of code, and React behind the scenes is doing so much. Trust me. Every time you click on this button, a reconciliation process is triggered. React finds out the difference between the older version of header, the virtual DOM of header, and the new virtual DOM, and it finds out that okay, only button changed. So okay, in this HTML, I will only update this button. So this is why React is fast. This is why React is the most popular framework. This is why React is considered to be the best when it comes to DOM manipulation, because it exactly knows what to change. So it only changes the button, right? So this is how this whole reconciliation process works. This is how this whole render cycle works. Every time I click on this button, see this, header rendered is being called, right? Did you see this? Every time I click on this login button, header is getting rendered, but only that button changes. Header is getting rendered. That means this code is getting called again and again. This code is getting called again and again. Isn't that amazing? Amazing. React is just amazing, and it's doing this very, very fast, right? That is why I just love React. And I hope you would have also fallen in love with React while learning Namaste React from me, right? So this was all about login, logout. Let's move to the next concept now. Let us take a quick break, experiment this yourself in your code, and then we will come back and then we will build another amazing thing, which is the search functionality over here, right? When we will build this search functionality, all the concepts will be cleared about use state, about use effect, about how the state works, how the components render, everything will be clear. Come back very fast, and then we will continue with this episode. That will be the last portion of that episode. Come back very fast. I'll wait for you. Hello. Welcome back to this last portion of this episode. And let me now tell you what we are going to develop this. This is the last portion, and you will be just amazed by what I am teaching you right now. You will understand everything about React very clearly after I teach you this. Okay? You will have no doubts about use state and how that state variable changes, how reconciliation is happening, how things are getting changed onto our web page, why it is happening so, how and why and when, right? These are the 3 questions you should ask every time you learn anything. I just don't want to teach you React. I want to teach you how to learn. Whenever most of the React tutorials you will find in the market, what they teach is how use state works. You can read the documentation, you can find out how use state works. But you will, you have to understand that why use state is behaving. First of all, why do we even need use state? Why do we even need local state variables when we can use JavaScript? React is built on JavaScript, right? All the JavaScript will work inside React also. But why do we even need that use state? Why do we even need that use effect? You should know why, how, when should I write that? These are important questions you should ask every time you learn whatever you learn. Not just React. Tomorrow you will learn Vue. Tomorrow you will learn another framework. Tomorrow you will learn different things or anything. This is a life lesson. You should know in depth. Once you know in depth, then you can go confidently and write, play with it, whatever, right? If you don't even understand that, I want all my Namaste React students to be so good that they can someday go to Facebook. They can go to Facebook and code inside React, build React. So when you build React, you should know what is happening inside React, right? So you should know your thought process changes when you learn all these things. I am telling you, you just don't want to be a React developer who just build the application using React, right? If I will write this, this will happen on the page. No, you should know why is that happening. When you will debug your application, right, you will exactly know that why is it behaving the way it is behaving. Why? Right? So, you will not get unexpected bug. You might have fallen into those issues, right? Where you feel that, okay, my code is right, but I don't know why I'm getting this bug. When you understand one level deep things, deeper things, then your logic, right? Your brain will think in that direction and you will be able to debug things faster. Trust me, you will see this difference in yourself after some time. When you will practice this and when you will be finished with this Namaste React, you will see a difference in yourself. This is what is the difference that I wanted to create in your life. And as you are a developer, I want you to be a better developer. Not just a developer who can code in React, but can also make big, large-scale applications inside React with confidence. When you will find a bug, you will not be scared. You will try to figure out, oh, Akshay told me like this, this is how render cycle works. This is why that bug is happening. Have that curiosity. And this curiosity is really very important. And that is why I want to teach you in depth, because I want to answer every small doubt of yours. Right? So let's go back and let's build the search functionality. Now what I'm going to do, these are the different restaurant over here. We have a Namaste restaurant also. Nice one. Trust me, I have not put this fake data. This must be our original restaurant. My God. Is it? Let me refresh the page. Is there a restaurant named Namaste somewhere? I definitely want to go and try out something over there. Where is Namaste? Oh, I don't see Namaste over here. Why? Is our data not coming live? Asha Tivins. Oh, here it is. This is Namaste. Oh my God. I did not know that we have a Namaste restaurant also. Oh my God. Nice one. Chalo. Anyways. So what we'll do is now we will build a search. So there will be a search bar. There will be a search button. You write anything and then you click on it. So it will just search inside it, right? So if I will search coffee, so it should filter out third wave coffee, right? So this is what I want to do that, right? If I search for cafe, it should give me these cafe, right? Dakshin Cafe and Cafe Amudham, right? So it should give me these two cafes filtered, right? So let me just see how we can build that, right? So now let us go back to our code and let's build that search bar next to this top rated restaurant, right? Where is our top rated restaurant? Inside our body, right? Over here we have this top rated restaurant. Oh, we have this div, filter div, right? And this is the button. So just above this filter, right? Just inside this filter, above this button, I am writing a search component, right? Not a component, but basically a search div, right? Let me give it a class name of search. Okay. Let me give it a search, right? Search. And in this search, what we'll have? We will have an input box, isn't it? Input type text. Call this as search, right? Search box, right? This is a search box. And then we will have this input box, isn't it? And then we will also have a button over here, right? This is a button and this is a search button, right? This is a search button. Let me go back to the UI and see this, how it looks. Oh my God, this looks right, this, right? So we have this input box, right? If I search over here cafe and click on this search button, it should filter out, right? It should filter out my cafes, right? let me make it better in the UI, right? Let's bring this top rated restaurant on the right side, isn't it? Let's give this filter, this filter as a display flex. Okay, let me just quickly move this up. Filter as a display flex, right? Display flex. Now you would say that, Akshay, why are you writing traditional CSS? Aren't you going to teach us Tailwind and Bootstrap and whatnot? Wait for a while. Take this pain. Later on, you will appreciate it more when I will teach you Tailwind, right? We are going to cover Tailwind. But yes, for now, let us just write it in traditional way, right? Let me go back and let me just change this. Let me see this. Oh, now it looks good, bye, right? So you can make it more fancy, right? Change the name, font, italics, whatever. But right now I'm settling with this CSS, right? So we have this search bar. Now we want to search for the restaurants over here, right? If I click on Right Cafe and click on search, something should work, right? For this to work, now why I'm teaching you all this is because there is an important concept involved in this, right? Input box, right? This input box has an important concept associated with it, right? If I click, right? On click of this button, right? Let me write a click handler over here. On click of this button, right? On click of this button, I want to implement a filter the restaurant cards and update the UI. Okay, filter the restaurant cards and update the UI on click of this search button. Filter, where will I get the search text from? So I will need the search text over here, isn't it? I will need this search text, right? Whatever is there in this input box. To get the data from the input box, I need to take this value of this input box and I have to bind this input box to a local state variable. Listen to me once more carefully. To track the value of this input box, whatever the user is typing in, to get that value, I have to bind this value with a local state variable of React, right? So let me just close this up, right? Let me just close this. So I will create one more state variable, right? One more state variable and I will bind that variable to my input box. Here is our search text variable, right? And I will just bind that to my input box. Initially, I will give my search text as empty, right? And now I will use this search text and I will also have a set search text, isn't it? Set search text to update it, right? To update it, isn't it? We have a search text and now I also want to update this search text and I will now bind this search text to my input box, right? If I bind this search text, how will I bind it? Right? I will use a proper JSX syntax. So in the JSX, I have given my value as search text, right? Now, what will happen is now this search text is over here. And when I click on this button, I want my search text, right? Let me just console log this search text and let us see whether we get this search text or not, right? Let me refresh the page. Now, let me try to search for something. Oh my God, we have some error over here. We will see, right? We will see this error. Why we are getting this error, right? If I click on this button and if I try to write, see, I'm writing, I'm typing and nothing is happening. Our input box is not taking anything. See this, I am typing over here. I am writing cafe over here. Nothing is happening over here. I am clicking on it and nothing is happening in this input box. Why so? Have we written some random code over here? Have we written something which React is not understanding in this input box? I am clicking on this button and it's not doing anything. Why? This, my friends, is an important concept you should know, and this very, very important. A lot of people, lot of developers again don't understand this. You know, this episode was just to teach how to make an API call and come back. I would have ended it right there. But I'm going to teach you these extra stuff because all these extra stuff will make your understanding more deeper, more richer. Everything will be clear that how React works behind the scenes. Why is it input box not working? I can make it work in one line, right? And a lot of teachers who teach you will make this work quickly. But I want to teach you first of all why this is not working. Nobody tells you why this is not working. They will teach you how to fix this. Every teacher, I am telling you, on the internet, most of the teachers will teach you like that. I don't know, I have not seen all the teachers, but I have seen a lot of teachers. They teach you like this and they are fine with it, right? It's not the fault of teachers also, right? It is sometimes, students find it boring, but I want to teach you the boring stuff also. I don't want to skip anything boring, but I want to teach you in depth. I want all my Namaste React students should know this, right? So why is this input box not working in first place? Why? Let me tell you, right? We have given this value, we have bind this value to search text over here. And the search text over here is bind to this input box. That means whatever is there inside this search text variable will be there inside the value of this input box, right? Now, when I change the value of this input box, when I am changing it, the value of input box still is tied to this search text. This value of this input box is tied to this search text, right? So my search text is not getting updated, but I am trying to modify my input box. It can't happen. So because this value is bind to this search text and the search text is empty, so this input box will not change unless we change the search text. So that is why to fix this, what we will do is we will write a onChange handler over here. So as soon as my input changes, right? As soon as my input changes, this input tag changes, what will happen? My onChange function should also change my search text, right? This onChange function should also change my search text. So whenever you are doing onChange, right? onChange, right? This onChange function should update my search text. How would you update my search text? Right? Update with the new value. First of all, how will I get the new value? So I will get it from this callback method. This is a E, right? It's a normal callback method like a normal click handler, right? Normal onChange handler, right? This is an event. And what we will do is we will set search text from here. Set search text. And the value we will give inside this is e.target.value. Right? e.target.value. Now what will happen? Let us see. Now what we are doing is, let me repeat it once again. In this input box, it is tied, this value is tied to search text, right? So whenever we will type something, whenever something changes inside this input box, we want to update my search text. Okay? And this is how it will update the search text and it will show the value over here. Now if I write test over here, see, everything is coming over here. Everything is coming over here. Isn't it? Isn't it amazing? Amazing, right? So if I do onChange, now if I do onChange and if I try to print this, right? If I try to print this value, search text value, it will print test over here. It will print test over here. Right? So what is happening? Let me repeat it once again. The input box, to make the input box work, first of all, I will have to tie my input box. I will have to bind. When I say bind my input box, that means I have to give this value as search text to a local variable of state, right? A local state variable, I have tied this, right? With a empty string. Now, as soon as my input changes, onChange, I want to update my search text so that it updates, right? So that it updates. Now, I'll tell you one more important thing. And now if I click on this button, right? Now if I click on this button and see the search text, right? Now if I click on this button, see the search text. See, I have got this test. I have got this test over here. Now I will tell you an amazing thing and your mind will be blown. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to know this amazing thing that will blow up your mind? You will pull your hairs when you know this. You will get goosebumps. Literally, you will get goosebumps when you will see this. I am telling you that. So whenever I am typing something, let me write cafe over here. As soon as I write C, A, F, E, as in when I am typing C, A, F, E, what is happening behind the scenes? What is happening? We are changing the local state variable. We are changing this local state variable. And what happens when you change this local state variable? Remember this on your life. Whenever you change a local state variable, React re-renders the component. React re-renders the component. So what do you mean by that, Akshay? Akshay, do you mean that whenever this search text is getting updated on every key press, my component is getting re-rendered? This whole body component is getting re-rendered. This whole body component is getting re-rendered. Is it? When I am typing this cafe, C-A-F-E, is my whole body component is getting re-rendered and refreshed? Is it happening so? Are you crazy? But yes, my dear friends, this is what is happening. And when I was learning React, when I explored React, and when I got to know that React is re-rendering that whole component once again, I literally got goosebumps. I literally got goosebumps that how is React so fast? Why on earth React is being so fast and even rendering this whole component again and again? How is it efficiently rendering it? So efficiently rendering it. But it is rendering it. Let me first of all show it to you that is it rendering or not rendering, right? I'll show it to you. Body is getting rendered again and again. Trust me, my dear friends. How will I check that? If you want to check that, just do a console log on the upper level, right? If the body will be rendered, this function will be called again, and this whole, right? If this will be printed, right? Body rendered, right? Body rendered. So let us go back and let me just go back and let me refresh the page. See, initially the body got rendered, right? Initially the body got rendered. Why it got rendered once again? Why did we see this body rendered once again? Because we made an API call. Remember, we made an API call. Why is this printing 2 times? Body rendered, and then we are making an API call, right? And we are setting this list of restaurant. Did you understand? Now things are connecting, right? Are you able to connect the dots? Why is this being rendered twice? Right? When we load the page once, why it is rendered twice? Remember that I told you how this will load and then this will render, then it will make an API call and it will render again. Yes, exactly. So why is because when you do this set list of restaurant after an API call, it updates my list of restaurant. And by definition of a state React variable, what is the definition of state React variable? Note it down in your notebook. I feel that this is very important, that whenever state variables update, React triggers a reconciliation cycle, or maybe React, what does it mean? It re-renders the component. This is what I want to tell you. Okay, so whenever there is a change in state variable, see, we were making an API call and we were changing this list of restaurant. That is why React was updating the whole UI again. It was re-rendering the component with this new data which was there in list of restaurant, right? The new data, this new JSON that we have got, we were putting this inside this list of restaurant, and React is re-rendering our component. Okay, so that is why it was happening. And now whenever I'm typing something inside my search text, what is happening? Let us just see. Let me write cafe over here. I'm writing C-A-F-E. Do you see, my friends? Do you see, my dear friends? This body rendered has been called 4 times. As in when I am writing cafe over here, cafe Akshay, right? See this. My body got rendered 11 times when I am typing. And think about component rendering. We will be typing this so many times, right? We are typing this so much, and 53 times our body got rendered, our body component got rendered. Oh my god, I thought that, is React mad to do this? Is React mad to do this? No, my dear friends. When you have the best algorithms to do this rendering, you can do the rendering as many times as you want. React has such amazing reconciliation process, such amazing rendering process, that it does not matter how many times. It does matter, right? If you will do this like 10,000 times, it will matter. But React does the render process very fast, efficient rendering, efficient DOM manipulation. See this, while I was doing that, we have already rendered our body 94 times. And it does not even feel in the UI that we are modifying this body 94 times. We have modified this body so many times. This is how amazing React is. How is it working? Let me tell you. Whenever you are typing anything, you are writing CAFE, it is calling this onChange method. This onChange method is taking this target value, right? This value, whatever I'm typing, CAFE, and it is just updating this state variable, updating this search text, and this body component is just refreshing. But the best part is React is triggering the reconciliation cycle. It is finding the difference between the older virtual DOM and the newer virtual DOM. Got it? So the React is finding the difference between the older virtual DOM. Okay. So where is it? React is finding the difference between the, what is virtual DOM? Virtual DOM is what? Remember from the last session? If you don't understand that, please go ahead and see where I have drawn and showed it to you, right? So virtual DOM is an object representation of this JSX, right? This actual DOM, right? This will convert to a virtual DOM. So it will find out the difference between an older. Whenever you are typing CAFE, it is finding out the difference between older and newer virtual DOM. And it sees that input value is changed. So now it's time to update my input box. So what React is doing is, React is re-rendering the body component. Listen to this statement very carefully. React is re-rendering the whole body component, but it is only updating input box value inside the DOM. DOM manipulation is very expensive and React is very efficient in doing this. Right? Whenever I am writing anything, let me just show it to you once again, right? Where is my input box? Let me go back, inspect, right? Where is my input box? Here is my input box. See this search box, right? So whenever I am typing something, right? See this. I am writing CAFE. Do you see this? React exactly knows. React is checking the difference every time I'm hitting that key press, right? React is finding out the difference between two virtual DOM, and it is updating only the input box, because React precisely know that only the input has changed from the older version of virtual DOM to the newer version of virtual DOM. And once it has found the difference, now it is updating that inside the DOM, only the input box. That's how efficient React is. React developers have written this code to do this thing. And what do? We just write two lines. And we are like, oh my god, everything is working fine. Everything is working so amazingly. But you know what? Behind the scenes, so much things are happening. Not all developers understand this. They don't even know that body component renders each time you do a key press. Each time I am doing a on change, this whole body component is getting re-rendered. People don't know this. People think, no, only the input is changing. People just feel that, okay, only the input is changing. No, the whole body component is getting re-rendered. We should challenge our knowledge, right? And then they don't understand. That is why they don't understand reconciliation. That is why developers, students don't understand how React works behind the scenes. What is React Fiber? All of this. React Fiber, if you don't know, is a new reconciliation process to like efficiently manipulate the DOM. Now you understood. Now if the interviewer asks you why React is fast, will you be able to answer this? You know, some people say that our application is faster because React is faster because it has virtual DOM. Such a lame answer. You know, I have asked this question so many times in an interview. Why? So they say that React applications are faster. I say, why is React faster? So what they say, what the student says, because React has a concept of virtual DOM. I say, okay, but that why virtual DOM is making it fast, right? How is virtual DOM making it fast? So virtual DOM is not making it fast. This React Fiber, the new reconciliation algorithm, which finds out the difference between two virtual DOM and updates the DOM only when required, and the portion of DOM which only that portion is required. That is why React is fast. This is the knowledge I want to give it to you. If you like this knowledge, please share this. I want this knowledge to be spread in the industry. I want all the React developers to know this. Please go ahead, tell your friends, tell your friends to learn from Namaste React. Please go out, give me a shout out on social media. Please. It took a lot of time to prepare all these concepts. I have gone through so many resources, so many articles, and I have acquired all this knowledge. So many hours of, I have put in so many, not just hours, I have put in so many days and months to find out how React works. And I want to give you all the knowledge I have, being very transparent. I want to give you all the knowledge I have, right? So this is how this input box is working. Now, if I click on this search button, now I want to filter it, right? Let's make this work quickly. I am just talking a lot, but please give me a shout out if possible over any social media, over LinkedIn. Write about this if you have learned something from this episode. I'm telling you, this is gold stuff which I'm teaching you. I'm telling you, this is very amazing. Lot of developers don't know this. Even senior developers don't know this stuff, right? People working like 5-6 years in React, they don't know all this, right? I'm telling you, right? Okay, let me go back. Now we have this on click. As soon as I click on this button, now I want to write the filter logic. Now I want to write this filter logic and I want to update my UI. How will I update my UI? That is very simple, right? I will just update my list of restaurant. And what will happen? As soon as I will update my list of restaurant, as soon as my state variable changes, what happens? Read this once again. Whenever my state variable updates, React triggers the reconciliation cycle and it re-renders the component. So whenever my list of restaurant will change, my UI will automatically get updated. So now our only job is as a developer to, React developers have made, right? React has made developers' life so easy, like in 2 lines, everything will work. But behind the scenes, a lot is happening. So what now we have to do is, when I got the search text, now I just want to filter out things and I want to re-render my component, right? So let us just do that. So I have my list of restaurant over here, right? And now I want to filter out my list of restaurant, right? I want to filter out my list of restaurant. So what I'll do is, I will just do a filter, right? I will use a array.filter, right? Filter method. If you don't know what is map, filter and reduce, right? I have made a video on map, filter and reduce. Map, filter, reduce in JavaScript, right? I have made this video, right, on my channel. Here is it, map, filter, reduce. Go ahead and check this out. Check this video out, right? You will understand how that filter method works. For now, I am just using this filter method directly. List of restaurant dot filter, and this filter takes a callback function, right? This callback function will iterate. This will iterate over all the list of restaurant. Basically, all the restaurant data that we have, right? All the restaurant data that we have. And what will happen is I will filter out. We have a restaurant, and if the restaurant, and how will I filter out? The condition will be if the restaurant.name, right? Is it restaurant.name? Let me check the JSON once, right? Let me check the JSON once. Search, refresh the page. Where is our JSON? Here is our JSON. If my restaurant.cards, where is my restaurant? Oh my God. Restaurant dot, this is the restaurant name, right? Restaurant.data.name, is it? Yes. Restaurant.data.name, right? Restaurant.data.name is equal to search text, right? Then filter out all the restaurant. Now this will give us filtered restaurant, filtered restaurant, right? We have got our filtered restaurant over here. Now what we have to do? Now we have to update our UI with this filtered restaurant. Now instead of showing this list of restaurant, I can just show my filtered restaurant. What should I do now? Should I update my list of restaurant? Should I update my list of restaurant from here? Right? Let us update our list of restaurant from here. Right? Set list of restaurant, and now my list of restaurant will be updated with this filtered restaurant, right? This filtered restaurant, whatever we have filtered with the search text. So if I write over here filtered restaurant, right? If I write over here filtered restaurant, what will happen is when you click on that button, it will filter out the restaurant and it will update this variable. And when you update this variable, it will trigger the reconciliation process. Our body component will re-render, and it will re-render with the updated value. So our restaurant will change. Let us see that in action. If over here, if I will write, let me just see what I want to filter out over here, right? Let us filter out this coffee, right? Let us filter out this coffee, third wave coffee. So I'm writing down COFFEE, and let me click on that search. If I click on this search, it did not work. Why? Oh my god, it did not work. Why it did not work? Res.data. Okay. Got it. I got that. Why it did not work? It did not work because the name of this is third wave coffee, and we are trying to find third wave coffee equal to search text. It won't work. I will have to find this name should includes the search text, right? This name should includes the search text, isn't it? Oh my god, my bad. I am just trying to match it. It will not match with coffee, definitely, right? My name should include the search text. If I refresh my page, let me just go back and write coffee, COFFEE, right? And I click on search. See this. Oh my god, we have got two coffees here, right? We have got filtered. Do you see this amazing thing? This is what amazing thing I wanted to tell you. We have just figured out that how we can update the DOM menu efficiently, right? Let me just show it to you once again. If I write coffee over here, COFFEE, what happened behind the scenes? Let me show it to you over here in the elements, right? Let us go back over here. Let us go back and let us see how our HTML changes. So when you click on it, I'll basically show you. See, these are the restaurant cards, right? There are 15 restaurant cards right now over here in this REST container. There are 15 restaurant cards. When I click, let me explain you what will happen. When I click on this, it will filter out all the restaurant which includes all the restaurant data name that includes coffee in it, right? And I am just updating my list of restaurant variable with that data, right? And what will happen is, as soon as this list of restaurant will be updated, whenever the state variable is updated, React will re-render my body component. It will re-render my body component, and this time it will re-render with this filtered data. Now, if I click on this and clicking on this, just see all this restaurant card. Just see this. I'm clicking on this search, 1, 2, 3, click. And all this REST container will be changed, and see this. All these 15 cards have gone and only 2 cards are left. See this, only 2 cards are left, right? So this is how React is doing. What React has done meanwhile is it updated it. React triggers the reconciliation cycle. It says that, okay, now the list of restaurant only has 2 data. Now what will happen is it just updates the DOM, right? There is a bug in our app, right? If the user will try to search for COFFEE, it will not work. Why? Because this coffee has a capital C and this coffee has a capital C over here, right? Third wave coffee, and this is a small letter. So we will have to take care of this, right? So how will I take care of this? I will just convert both of them to lowercase or uppercase, whatever, right? So I have to match the case before I am checking, right? So this is a common problem, right? You might face this issue. I have taught React to a lot of developers. I know you will get stuck into this bug and then you will write emails to me, Akshay, this is not working for me. So just do a two lowercase over here, two lowercase before you are finding it, right? Make it to two lowercase, right? And then let me just copy this, and then even for the search text, so in whatever random order you search, right? Even if I write capital COFEE, right, in a different fashion, right? Let me write it in some random letter, COFFEE, right? And let me click on search, it will still work, right? We have made this case insensitive. This is not case sensitive search now. I know you will fall in this bug. Right? Now, do you know our app, the search functionality, still has a bug. And I want you all to fix that bug. I want you all to fix that bug yourself. Now, suppose if I want to search for something else, I want to search for cafe now, CAFE. See this. What happened? What happened? Everything is gone. We have broke our code. Is there some error in console? There is no error in console. We have just broke our code. What happened to this? If I am searching over here, let me search for cafe over here. This cafe works, right? This cafe came in. But if I am searching for the next time, if I am searching anything for the next time, it does not work. Why is it happening? Now you would understand, oh my god, Akshay, this is so complicated and you are even making it more complicated. But you already know answer to it. Let me help you a little. So whenever we are doing a filter one time, right? Suppose if I am searching for coffee over here, right? We got these two restaurants. What we have done is we have updated our list of restaurants, right? We have updated our list of restaurants. And now when you are searching inside it once again, you are searching inside these two restaurants, not the whole 15 restaurants that you got. So we have modified our list of restaurants with these two data, right? Two restaurants, right? And we have lost all those 15 restaurants which were there, right? Which we got, the data that we got from the API, right? We have lost that data and we have updated it with the new data. So now this filter is only working on these two restaurants. So now if I will search for Wave, see this. If I will search for Wave, right? This third Wave coffee, let me search for Wave. So if I click on this, see, it works. Got it? But suppose if I have to search back in the, but is this functionality good? No, right? Actually, the search should work on all those 15 restaurants which were there from the API call, right? So that is the bug. How will you solve this? Homework for you. Not a homework. Then again, a lot of people won't be able to solve and then they will email me, Akshay, I'm not able to do that homework. Please help me. Okay, so maybe what I'll do is take a break over here. Try to solve this bug. Do whatever I did. Make this search functionality. Try to solve this bug. Don't see the solution. Now I am telling you the solution, right? After this break, I will tell you the solution and then we will wind up this episode. This episode has become a little longer than all the other episodes, but trust me, this knowledge is super, super, super important. This will help you crack a lot of interviews. It will help you. You will go to the interview with confidence and you know exactly each meaning of each and every word that you are writing. That is why I teach you very slow. That is why I teach you in depth. That is why I want to cover everything behind the scenes of React. Right? So what we are doing is, the mistake over here, the bug is introduced because we are just updating our list of restaurants with filtered list. Right? We are just modifying the original list itself. Instead, what we should do is, we don't want to modify this. Instead, we will keep another copy of this filtered list, right? So a simple solution to this is we will keep all the list of restaurant in my list of restaurant, and what I'll do is I will create another state variable for filtered, only the filtered restaurant, right? Only the filtered restaurant, right? Let me give it filtered restaurant and set filtered restaurant, and let me use a use state, and initially these filtered restaurant are empty again, right? Right? And now whenever we are doing a filter, so instead of updating my list of restaurant, I will just update my set filtered restaurant, right? So now I am updating my set filtered restaurant, and now when I am rendering, I will render it from filtered restaurant. So basically I have kept a copy of all the restaurant in list of restaurant, and I have my filtered restaurant, right? So now whenever I am applying filter, I will apply to filter, and whenever I will, and while filtering, I would need this list of restaurant. This list of restaurant is intact. I am never modifying this list of restaurant. Okay, I am modifying it never. No, I am just modifying it one time whenever I am getting this data from this API. Got it? So now we have got this filtered restaurant. But one more thing. Initially, my filtered restaurant is empty. If I refresh my page, you will see nothing on the page. You will see nothing on the page. Why? Okay, I have not updated below, right? Have I updated it? Oh, I have not saved it. If I'll save it, now you won't see anything on the page. Why? You will not see anything on the page. Why? Why you will not see anything on the page? Because the problem is we have not updated. This filtered restaurant is still empty. So initially I will update. Now you would understand that, Akshay, what are you doing? I'm not understanding this, but it will make sense. Let me just write it down. So when we are fetching data, I am updating a copy of list of restaurant as well as filtered restaurant with whatever data I have got, right? This data that I have got, I am updating both of my state variable with this. I am updating both of my state variables with this. Let me refresh the page. So now, see this. When the body component is loaded for the first time, it makes an API call and it updates the list of restaurant as well as the filtered restaurant. Okay, the list of restaurant. So, and now I will use this list of restaurant intact, right? Whenever I have to filter something, I will just use this list of restaurant to filter out, and then I will update my filtered restaurant, and to display it on the UI, I am just using this filtered restaurant, right? It will make sense to you when I will explain you right now, right? I have just rendered this. Now, when I will search for COFFEE, and if I click on this, see, now what happened? When I clicked on this, filtered restaurant got updated, right? This filtered restaurant got updated, and whenever a state variable changes, it automatically refreshes. So filtered restaurant, I was displaying this restaurant with the filtered restaurant. So this filtered restaurant is now getting displayed. What is the value inside my list of restaurant? So the list of restaurant will still have the data which was coming from that API. So next time I will filter, right? So next time I will filter, it will filter from the list of restaurant, right? So it will filter from the list of restaurants. So suppose if I am doing cafe now, right? And I'm clicking on search. Now it is showing me cafe, right? It is showing me the results of cafe from 15 restaurants. If I have done empty and I click on search, it is showing me all the restaurants. Now our search is working great, right? If suppose I want to search for namaste, right? NAMASTE, right? Namaste, click on search, it is giving me namaste. So this is how you have to solve this bug, and this is how, if you did not understand this yet, go back, play with this code. There is nothing extra I am doing, nothing fancy I am doing. I want you all to practice. See, I can give you in-depth knowledge also, but unless you practice it yourself, unless you write code, nothing is going to work for you. Just seeing, it is like, you are watching a video and you are trying to learn code is just like learning driving using code. Can you watch a YouTube video and learn driving, how to drive a car? Can you learn that? No. Similarly, coding is same. You can't learn coding without you actually practice it. Whenever you will code, right now it might be looking simple. Right now you would feel that Akshay has explained me very beautifully. I have understood all reconciliation, all everything. But trust me, my dear friends, unless you code yourself, when you will go and code, you will still make mistakes. Just like when you learn driving, right? You make mistakes, you hit some cars here and there, you hit something here and there, right? Similarly, you will get a lot of bugs in your code. You will mess up, pull up your hairs, but come back to this video, see what I was doing, and then make your understanding even more stronger. When you will play with this code, you will understand everything. What you can do to make your understanding even more deeper is go to the element, see what is happening on every key class, and trust me, code slow. The lesson of this episode is the life, and I'm giving you life lesson, not the lesson of this episode. Code slow. Lot of us want to hurry up and code. We want to make this search functionality. We just want to quickly code and make this. No. Code slow. Slow coding is very underrated. Whatever I have learned so far in my life, coding slow has helped a lot in my career, a lot in my life, a lot in my life as a developer. I can't tell you how much beneficial it is if you will code slow. When you code slow, what do you mean by code slow? Basically, whenever you are writing each and every word, question yourself, why I am writing this? Why I am writing this filter? Is it really required? Why I am writing this 2 lowercase? Why I am writing this includes? Can I write something else? Can this be better? Question and code slow. When you will code slow, you will learn a lot. This is the life lesson I want to give it to you. Spread this knowledge with your friends also. Tell everybody to code slow. There is no need to hurry to code. The people who code faster, they take a lot of time to debug. The people who code slow takes very less time to debug. Or they don't even need a debug. Right? Let me repeat it once again. I should code this up, right? Write my name below it. The people who code slow does not need to debug their code or have to debug it they spend very less time in debugging. The people who code faster, they have to debug a lot. They take a lot of time in debugging. Oh my God. I can make a quote out of this, right? People who code faster will take a lot of time to debug. Right? So code slow. This is what I want to give you in this lesson. And please code slow, learn in depth, keep watching Namaste React, and hope you would have loved this episode. Keep watching Namaste React. I'll see you in the next episode. We will learn a lot of new things. So stay tuned. Come back to the next episode. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.